A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. And if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free. We live in an age of desperate escape, of frantic, collective flight from one thing, ourselves. We are haunted by the prospect of being alone just for a moment, with nothing but our own thoughts. This isn't just a feeling, it's a documented phenomenon. In 2014, a revealing study led by Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia, published in the journal Science, exposed this fear in stark detail. Participants were asked to sit in a room by themselves for just 6 to 15 minutes. No phones, no books, no distractions. Their only option, if they chose, was to press a button and receive a mild, unpleasant electric shock. The results were astonishing. A significant portion of participants, particularly men, chose the physical pain of the shock over the psychological discomfort of silent introspection. This video is not about the pain of loneliness. It is about the profound, transformative power of nutritious solitude, the voluntary, intentional act of being with oneself. We will explore why we run, what we're running from, and how the very thing we fear holds the key to our creativity, our emotional clarity, and our true freedom. We are told we live in an era of unprecedented freedom, yet we have willingly shackled ourselves to a digital IV drip of constant noise. This incessant pursuit of entertainment, information, and social connection is not freedom. It is the architecture of a sophisticated new prison, a prison that keeps us from ever having to meet ourselves. The core argument is this: this culture of distraction is, fundamentally, a theft of self-knowledge. Every moment we spend filling the silence, we are robbed of the mental clarity and the internal dialogue necessary to understand who we actually are. Think about it in your own life. That compulsive check of notifications the second a conversation ends. That immediate reflex to fill a quiet commute with a podcast or a wait in line with scrolling through a feed. We treat boredom not as a neutral state or even a necessary one, but as an enemy to be vanquished. These are not signs of a connected life. They are symptoms of an inner void we are terrified to confront. Schopenhauer, again, was ruthless on this point. He argued that our sociability is often not a sign of our love for others, but a fundamental inability to endure our own company. He saw that for many, the self was a burden. When we are alone, he observed, we are thrown back onto our own resources. And for the person who has cultivated no inner life, this is a terrifying, empty place. We seek the company of others, not to share our fullness, but to escape our emptiness. Now, consider the paradox. The very state we are conditioned to avoid, solitude, is the prerequisite for the deepest forms of human achievement. Consider the minds that shaped our modern world. Nikola Tesla, who conceived of his revolutionary AC motor while alone on a walk. Albert Einstein, who claimed his greatest insights emerged from long periods of solitary thought experiments. Even in the modern era, Bill Gates is famous for his think weeks. Twice a year, he isolates himself in a cabin with nothing but books and papers. He doesn't do this as a vacation. He does it as the most critical part of his work. These figures understood a truth we have forgotten. True innovation is not born in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of the focused mind. Neuroscience now gives this a name. When your brain is not focused on an external, goal-oriented task, like answering an email or watching a video, it activates a network of brain regions known as the default mode network, or DMN. You might assume this is your brain shutting off. The opposite is true. The DMN is intensely active. This is the network responsible for consolidating memories, for self-reflection, for contemplating the future, and most critically, for the incubation of ideas. It's the neurological basis of the aha moment. When you are constantly distracted, you are robbing your DMN of the time it needs to do its most important work. You are silencing the architect within your own mind. We live under a dictatorship of productivity, where being busy is a status symbol. But this busyness is a mask, a convenient excuse to avoid the difficult, essential work of introspection. We are confusing activity with progress. It is crucial, at this point, to make a distinction. The painful isolation of loneliness, which is imposed upon you by circumstance or social exclusion, is destructive. That is not what we are discussing. Nutritious solitude is different. It is a voluntary, positive, and constructive choice. It is the difference between being lonely and being with oneself. It is the intentional carving out of time to be present with your own consciousness, to process, to think, and to simply be. Schopenhauer illustrated this challenge perfectly in his famous parable, The Hedgehog's Dilemma, found in his work Parerga and Paralipomena. The parable describes a group of hedgehogs on a cold day. They need to huddle together for warmth to survive. But when they get too close, they prick each other with their sharp spines, forcing them apart. They are caught in a painful oscillation, drawn together by the need for warmth and repelled by the pain of proximity. This, Schopenhauer argued, is the dilemma of human society. We need each other, but we also wound each other. The solution, he implies, is not to simply bear the pain or freeze alone. The solution is to generate one's own warmth. When you cultivate a rich inner life through nutritious solitude, you generate your own intellectual and emotional heat. You become a source of your own validation, comfort, and insight. What are the dangers of failing to do this? First, you create connections based on neediness, not choice. You become one of the cold hedgehogs, desperately seeking others, not for who they are, but for the warmth they provide. You use them to fill your void, and this is the root of codependent and fragile relationships. Second, you suffer from emotional dysregulation. Without the silent space to process your experiences, emotions like anger, sadness, and anxiety don't get resolved. They simply get paused by the next distraction, only to return later, stronger and more volatile. And third, you lose your authenticity. If you're never alone, your thoughts are never truly your own. You become a hollow echo chamber of the podcasts you listen to, the opinions on your feed, and the expectations of your social circle. You lose your center because you never gave it the silence it needed to form. This is where the fear transforms into opportunity. When you willingly step away from the noise, the initial experience is uncomfortable. It's jarring. You feel the itch to check your phone. You feel the anxiety of an unstructured moment. But if you can sit through that discomfort, something profound happens. The silence ceases to be an empty void and becomes a creative space. This is the soil for true autonomy. You begin to hear your own voice, distinct from the noise of the crowd. You start to untangle your authentic beliefs from from the ones you merely absorbed. This process allows for the creation of authentic meaning. Instead of consuming meaning manufactured by others, in entertainment, in dogma, in trends, you begin to build it from within, based on your own reflections and values. This is the true freedom. It is not the freedom to go anywhere you want, but the freedom to be okay, right where you are. It is an immunity to the noise, the opinions of others, the pressures of the crowd, the fear of missing out. They lose their power over you. You are no longer a leaf blown about by the winds of culture. You are the tree, rooted in your own understanding. This is not an easy gift. It is a conquest. It demands responsibility. It requires you to face your own boredom, your own anxieties, and your own inner chaos, and to find your own order within it. So, we are brought back to the central challenge of our modern age. The call to action is not to abandon society or delete your apps. It is to consciously reject the culture of constant, mindless distraction. It is to have the courage to schedule time to be alone, just as you would schedule a meeting or a workout. It is the challenge to face the silence and see what looks back. In the beginning, as the 2014 study showed, that silence may feel like a shock, but as you practice, the silence stops being a void and becomes a mirror. It reflects your deepest strengths, your unexamined assumptions, and your untapped creative potential. And here is the beautiful, final paradox. By learning to be alone, you radically improve your relationships with others. When you're no longer a cold hedgehog, you can approach others without the desperate need to take warmth from them. You are already warm. You can connect with them not out of need, but out of authentic choice. You can offer your strength instead of just seeking to patch your own weaknesses. You become a better friend, partner, and parent. The journey inward is the single most important journey you can take, because as Schopenhauer warned us, he who cannot generate his own warmth will live forever as a hostage to proximity and the fear of rejection.